Welcome to the Breakup Recovery Podcasts by your host, Barbara Stevens. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Barbara Stevens, breakup recovery mentor, author, and public speaker. Barbara offers programs and solutions for any breakup so you can turn your life around, create lasting changes for the better, and embrace life again.
Hello and welcome to Breakup Recovery. My name is Barbara Stevens and I'm a breakup recovery mentor. In today's episode, I welcome back Alvia Turney, CEO of Act for Tomorrow. Alvia and her team from Act for Tomorrow are experts in relationships and separations. They help you through the process of separating and offer a variety of services, starting at the very beginning when you think you may want to separate, through to the actual negotiations with your ex-partner and everything in between. So Alvia has a great deal of knowledge when it comes to getting through the holiday period, and in today's episode she will share her insights, strategies and tips for when you may have to be at the same function or gathering as your ex-partner. This might mean that you have to meet the new ex-partner of your ex. This could be at a Christmas or Thanksgiving function, or other occasions such as a birthday party of a mutual friend, an occasion that involves your children, a school play or graduation day, things like that. So these tips are not only for the holidays, but also for many of the times that you may come in contact with your ex-partner and their new partner. So welcome back, Alvia.
Hello, Barbara. Lovely to be with you again.
So, Alvia, what tips do you have for people who have been through a breakup and now find that they are attending the same social function as their ex-partner and possibly with their new partner?
The first tip is planning. Planning the event, planning turning up early on time so you're not flustered. Planning your outfit, your hair, what you look like, everything so that you feel confident. That's part one. When you arrive at the venue, if you're there early before everybody else, at least then it gives you time to have a look around, see areas that you can escape to, perhaps even just the toilets, so you can have 5 minutes away from everybody. Consider where you're going to sit. So as I say, planning is the most important. However, you're now at the venue and everyone has turned up and you're looking across the room and you're still single. It's natural to feel it's not fair, I'm on my own, or whatever your emotional feeling that you're running with, or even irritation and anger at the other person. However, again, it comes back to planning. Before you go to an event, think about the things that you will say. Consider as well, whatever you say, everyone is watching, especially on the first occasion, so be polite. Other people can make their own mistakes by being rude or ignoring you and things like that. So take the higher moral ground. Write down a list of greetings that you would feel comfortable with. So the initial, hello, how are you? What are you going to say after that? Literally write out a sentence. Say things like, how's work? Or have you moved location? Or I heard that everything is going well for you. I'm very pleased. And then excuse yourself.
So when you're going to ask a question, do you recommend just asking maybe one or two questions and then walking away from the situation?
Absolutely. Have an escape. So politeness, one question, and then move away to a family member or a friend who you know. And at least then you've broken the ice. Don't stand in the corner and wait for that couple to either ignore you or come over to you, because it is very confrontational. And keep it very, very simple.
I know what you mean about the confrontation. You can build yourself up with this anxiety of all the things that could go wrong, what they could be saying about you, and it goes on in your mind, and possibly they're not even thinking that way.
Yes, most of the time the problems that we think exist, the what-ifs, are usually just all in our imagination and our fears. The other thing that I would suggest as a major part of planning for this day is to write a list of the reasons that you're no longer with this person. If you keep this list with you, we tell our clients to write a list of 12 things. we were not happy for the last 3 years. Number 2, we didn't communicate. Number 3, we were not intimate any longer. Number 4, we always argued in front of the children. Make your list of 12 things, fold it up and keep it in your bag or wallet, and that way that gives you comfort. And when you do see your partner, you're not actually feeling like you want to be with them any longer, and you feel quite confident about looking across the room and thinking, oh, thank goodness we're not together anymore.
So I guess it comes down to planning your day, getting there on time or even earlier, and then working out where your escape route is, who are other people that you can talk to, and then when you are confronted with your ex-partner and possibly their new partner, be polite, ask generalised questions, and move on.
Absolutely. Keep it short and sweet and polite and move away.
Okay, what about if there was a situation where the ex-partner started to have a go at you or said a derogatory comment or just wasn't very nice? What would you suggest people do in that situation?
Simply do not respond. The best form of action would be to just literally get up and politely say, well, would you just excuse me? Walk away, and as I say, you know where to go. Go to other friends, go to the bathroom, or even if it means that you have to leave, whoever is hosting the function, remove yourself. Just say, thank you so much for inviting me, but it is better that I leave. Once again, Barbara, pick the higher moral ground and show the fact that you're a better person.
So really just don't engage in the conversation when it's deteriorating into insults.
Yes, this is not a forum to air your point of view or your grievances, because the other person will just escalate it. It's best to just move away. It always looks better. You just look the more intelligent, polite, and courteous person.
I think another tip would be not to drink too much, wouldn't it?
Actually, I hadn't thought of that one. Absolutely, yes. Be the sober person. Yeah. Be the designated driver.
So what other tips do you have for people who may be on their own during the holiday period? It might be that it's their ex-partner's turn to have the children, or what was a normal routine now can be no longer because the relationship has now ended.
It can be a very sad, stressful time for people suddenly finding themselves all on their own. It could be just your birthday, and suddenly you think, well, I'm not seeing the children today, or I'm not seeing my family because I'm by myself. And Christmas for many people has that sadness associated with it. So again, I go right back to the beginning. Planning. We know it's coming up. We know we're going to be on our own. If you're not going to be able to see friends, volunteer. I had a friend last year volunteer at the soup kitchen. She was in Perth and had the most amazing time, filled her day by helping others.
So I guess when you mean planning, plan something else for the day, whether it's with other friends,
neighbours. Yes, friends, neighbours. Plan an activity. You could even take yourself away on a holiday. Not everyone has the luxury of being able to afford that. So just plan an activity. And as I say, the best would be to volunteer at your time, because you get so much out of volunteering.
So what should people, they can get themselves into a cycle of negativity and make the day even more worse than it probably is. So what would you advise people to think or say to themselves when they start having those negative thought patterns about, I'm all by myself, this isn't fair, I'm lonely, I'm angry, I'm depressed, this is just not what I want for my day? What do you suggest that they do, and thoughts that they can think to change this around?
You really must have a set of positive affirmations. And I'm going to even go back to having that list, as I say. We call it our list of 12 things, the reasons why you're not in a particular relationship. Even though they're the negative reasons that you're no longer there, they give you comfort. They make you realize that you're actually better off on your own. Put on some happy music. Turn on a movie. You don't have to be with other people to be happy. But as long as you can remember and focus on the fact that you're better off now than you were, you will move your mood quite swiftly. But it comes down to personal choice, Barbara. You choose to be on your own. You choose to ask a friend over. You choose to make an effort. So it really is up to you to make the effort to improve your particular situation, life, who is surrounding you. You must make the effort to make friends.
Yes, because really, ultimately, it does come down to you, doesn't it?
Yes, it really does, because you are thankfully no longer in a relationship that didn't serve you.
Alvia, tell me of an occasion where maybe one of your clients has had to attend a function and their ex-partner was there.
Okay, so this lovely lady was attending her son's 18th birthday party. So when she arrived at the venue, people had already arrived before her, and so had her ex-husband and his new partner. So she had herself organised with her little list of knowing the reasons that she no longer wanted to be with him. And this is quite fresh, really. It's only 6 months since their separation had taken place, so it was very confrontational for her. Got to the venue. She had done her preparation. She knew exactly what she was going to do. Hopefully, she didn't bump into her ex straight away, which is what took place. She didn't bump into him, and so she found her children, her daughters, and then went over to her son and gave him his gift. Was laughing and joking, and then she did see her ex-husband and partner at the other side of the room. So one of her choices that she decided was she would either walk over there, depending on how she felt when she got to the venue, or she'd wait for them. Well, she chose to move over across the room and to say hello. Well, her ex-husband was actually quite rude. He grunted. So she said, "Oh, hello, I'm very pleased to meet you, and, I hope you enjoy our son's event." And again, the husband just sort of grunted and virtually sort of made a silly gesture and laugh at her. But the new partner was very polite. She just thanked this lady and said, "Oh, thank you very much. We are having a lovely time." And then my client moved away and got herself a drink and then sat down with family members. When she left, before the party had finished, she made a point again of just going over and saying goodbye. And once again, the husband behaved like a fool and just grunted at her. Well, the point of my story is he has made an example to the rest of the family of how foolish he is. And her feeling is that she's empowered herself because she feels so much better. And next time around, she's not going to feel so uncomfortable because she's confident now about her behaviour and how she can handle herself in public.
How was she feeling before the actual function?
She was discussing with me that she wouldn't go.
So she felt that anxious about it that she was even considering not going to her own son's 18th birthday party.
Absolutely. It was overwhelming for her. When we discussed after the event, she said how she had really talked herself into that fear and realised when she got there it actually wasn't that bad after all. It was her own mind just playing games with her.
What did she think about her husband's behaviour, how he grunted at her and he couldn't even have a proper conversation with her?
Well, she actually felt sorry for him because she felt he obviously hadn't worked out a strategy of what he was going to do, and he looked extremely uncomfortable. As I said, it made her feel very empowered and helped her to move on in her situation as well.
And confident that she could attend any function now, even if he is there with his new partner.
Absolutely, yes.
So, Alvia, what about yourself? Did you have any anxiety when you had to come in contact with your ex-partner?
I think the biggest anxiety for me is what I would say and what sort of conversations, and would it be awkward, and what would the responses be. And I actually haven't found on any of the occasions that it was as overwhelming or as uncomfortable or as rude as I imagined it was going to be. And I think this is where I have really stressed to the clients that if you plan what you're going to wear, if you plan what you're going to say, you don't feel as if you're off guard when something happens. And as you said, Barbara, remove yourself if it does get uncomfortable.
I guess with the planning also, you have some control, don't you? You have control over what you are going to say. You have control over what you're going to wear. You have control of you being able to remove yourself from the conversation. So once you do that, I can understand how it can be empowering for somebody, and it can build their confidence to know that they can be in a social function with their ex-partner.
It's the confidence. Definitely gives you confidence with the planning, and that's what I think it's all about. Once you've overcome that initial meeting, you really can face any meeting after that. It really doesn't matter.
Do you know, I had a friend who had been separated from her ex-partner, her ex-husband actually, for at least 8 years, and this particular man refused to go to any family functions if my friend attended. You know, he had since married, my friend had since married, but he still put these conditions in place for his children when there was any function. So, you know, the children felt quite put in the middle, I think. They felt, you know, they couldn't have both parents at their functions. It came to a birthday party of one of the grandchildren, and my friend's child said, no, I'm actually having Mum and her husband, and Dad, you're just going to have to put up with it. Well, my girlfriend was just so intimidated by the new partner. She had built this story up in her mind that, you know, there was going to be a big row, you know, she wasn't going to be liked, she'd embarrass herself. All those scenarios went through in her mind. Well, it got to the party. My girlfriend had arrived. Well, she actually was staying with her daughter, so she was already at the function, which I think was very good for her because she felt familiar in the situation. Well, the ex-husband arrived with his partner, and she felt herself tense up. The ex-husband couldn't even eyeball her, but his new wife came straight over to my friend, put her hand out and said, I am so happy that we are finally meeting. And the anxiety just dissipated from there, because the new wife of her ex-husband was so welcoming and put her hand forward and greeted her. It was just such an amazing event, and everything from then on was fine. But, you know, her ex-husband still found it difficult to have a conversation with her. He almost grunted at her too. He would come in and out of the conversation, making sure that, you know, I think that he wasn't talked about. But my point is that my friend had built up this huge scenario of everything that could go wrong, and she never thought about what could go right. And what could go right did happen. So it is possible, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Once you've overcome that final hurdle, which I still think is part of the breakup, you move on, and you can just move on with everyone's lives. You miss out if you don't attend these functions, and you also spoil the function for the children and your grandchildren.
And I also think if you stop yourself going to one function, it makes it very difficult after that to get yourself to the next function that you're invited to.
Yes, absolutely, Barbara.
So, Alvia, thank you for once again coming on to Breakup Recovery Podcast and sharing your knowledge. And hopefully anyone listening to this podcast won't feel so intimidated or anxious when they find that they have to be in the same room as their ex-partner and possibly meeting their ex-partner's new partner. That's quite a tongue-tied to say. So thank you, Alvia, once again.
Thanks, Barbara. Take care.
If you would like to hear previous Breakup Recovery podcasts, visit barbarastevens.com.au. Connect with Barbara Stevens on social media with Barbara Stevens Breakup Recovery Mentor on Facebook and at You'll Be Okay on Twitter. Read further blogs, view webinar replays, and download your free ebook, 3 Easy Steps to Surviving Your Breakup, and much more at barbarastevens.com.au.